Amid all the noise of Iran's recent missile attack on Israel, one of the things that's lost is the important lessons Iran appears to have learned from the war with Iraq. Often we forget that current policymakers in Tehran are implementing many of those lessons that they learned during the war with Iraq. Three of these lessons are key to understanding Iran's current strategic profile. First and foremost, Iranian policymakers appear to be determined that the next war the country is engaged in won't be fought on Iranian soil. In other words, Iran won't be caught on its back foot. A second important lesson is the importance of an indigenous, domestic missile program. Iranians had an incredibly difficult time during the war with Iraq procuring the necessary weapons that they needed to fight the war. And so immediately after the war was over, Iran embarked on a very concerted effort to develop an indigenous missile program. And of course, we see the utility of that missile program from Tehran's perspective during the recent conflict with Israel. Last but not least is the importance of what Tehran calls strategic depth. The fact that Iran needs a number of deterrent actors, allies, friends, as well as a strategic foothold in places where its adversaries can be hurt, in places like Syria and Lebanon in relation to Israel, for example. And that strategic depth and what has resulted in Iran putting together the so-called axis of resistance has become critically important in Iran's current defense doctrine. Iran's recent missile attack on Israel also shows its preoccupation with what Tehran calls deterrence. We have seen this deterrence at work on a couple of occasions in the past. We saw it in January of 2020 in the aftermath of the American assassination of General Soleimani when Iran attacked US bases in Iraq and inflicted major damage to those bases infrastructurally and also in terms of injuries to American servicemen. And we also saw it in April of 2024 when Israel attacked Iranian consulate buildings in Damascus, when Iran for the first time attacked Israel with its missiles. And again, we saw it on October 1 of this year, 2024, when in retaliation for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut and an Iranian commander of the Revolutionary Guards, Iran engaged in a major missile attack. And what these missile attacks by Iran show is not only a willingness and an ability to use its missile programs, but also a preoccupation with re-establishing deterrence and making sure that Tehran's military prowess is known in regional capitals, in Israel, as well as in Washington, D.C. From Tehran's perspective, the recent missile attack on Israel was much more effective and lethal than anyone anticipated. And of course, this effectiveness only reinforces the strategic importance of Iran's missile program insofar as the country's defense doctrine is concerned. We saw the importance of the missile program in terms of Russia's procurement of Iranian missiles in its war on Ukraine. And now we've seen that Iranians have used their own missiles with considerable effectiveness when it's come to Israel. And the lesson that policymakers in Tehran are going to draw from this is that an effective missile program is only likely to enforce the country's deterrence and strategic defense profile. What does this tell us about Iran's overall military profile? Well, a couple of important lessons can be drawn. First and foremost, we've seen for the past 15 years or so, Tehran practice what it has called strategic patience. In other words, it has absorbed pain and loss inflicted by Israel, and it has played the long game. That doctrine appears to be transforming as we speak into an immediate response and a tit-for-tat response. So the doctrine of strategic patience, whereby Iran was playing the long game, appears to be coming to an end, insofar as Israel is concerned at least. More importantly, we're seeing what the Iranians are calling forward defense. In other words, a much more assertive, muscular foreign and security policy. We've seen this in relation to the recent trip of the Iranian Foreign Minister Araqchi to the Gulf region, informing his counterparts that Iran will consider as belligerent any country that lends its airspace or its military bases to American or Israeli forces on an attack against Iran. And what we're seeing is a much more assertive profile on the part of Tehran. Moving forward, we can expect continued tensions not only between Iran and Israel, but also between Iran and the United States, no matter who is elected president in Washington come November.